Police in Nashville have released body camera video footage showing officers responding to a shooting at a primary school which left 3 students and 3 staff members dead. The 6-minute video shows police making their way from classroom to classroom, weapons drawn, as they search for the shooter while emergency alarms wail. US Correspondent Caroline Malone is tracking the story for us and joins me now for more. Caroline, thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Can you talk to us a little bit about the motive for this shooting? We know that the shooter, Hale, identified as a transgender male, but do we know at this stage whether that played into the motive behind this shooting?
Well, that's the ultimate question, really. That hasn't yet been answered. We don't yet know what the motive is behind this awful, awful shooting. We did hear, though, from the Nashville police just a short time ago. They said that the shooter did legally purchase their guns, that they'd hid some of them at their parents' house. We weren't sure of why they'd hid them, but we did know from the parents that this person had an emotional disorder that was being treated by a doctor. Potentially that they were also suicidal. However, they were able to legally purchase 7 guns, and they used 3 of those guns in this awful attack at the Christian school in Nashville. And we know a bit more now about the victims as well. There were 6 victims overall. 3 of them were 9-year-olds, so, very young children really attending this elementary school, and 3 adults. One of those adults was the head of the school. There was also a custodian that was killed in this attack, and one of the children was actually the daughter of one of the lead pastors at the school.
Caroline, I want to get back to the shooter just for a brief moment before we talk about the very controversial gun laws in Tennessee, which sort of are drawing focus during the aftermath of this shooting. And I want to talk about the manifesto. And I know that the police in Nashville haven't released a lot of information about that manifesto yet. But from what we know, they have said that the shooter left a manifesto sort of detailing a map as to the route, how they would enter the school, what they would be wearing on the day, which has been reportedly confirmed as being very close to the outfit that the shooter was indeed wearing. Do we know any more details released by the Nashville police about the planning of this shooting?
Well, certainly some of the information that came out from the presser gives us a bit of a sense of, who this suspect was. It was a 28-year-old called Audrey Hale. And their ID was quite unusual, really, for a school shooting, because school shootings are usually carried out by men in the United States. But this was a woman. This was a transgender woman who identified as a woman. So in that sense, a highly unusual situation. But this was a woman who was also a student at the school in the past. And the police have said there's some suggestion that it could be some retribution as, the reasoning behind why this shooting happened. But certainly when it came to the planning of the incident, we do get a sense that this was a very well-planned attack. The police have said that they've seen maps that were drawn out. They've also seen a very detailed plan. We also know from a former classmate of Hale that she actually got a chilling message just before Hale went into the school saying that something bad was about to happen. And that this was essentially a final message of goodbye. So, I guess we can conclude from that very much that Hale had planned this attack and planned to die in the attack herself.
Talk to us a little bit about the impact on the community and their reaction to the shooting.
I mean, it's absolutely devastating. Clearly, no one can expect something this awful to happen in any community, let alone a very small, friendly community that it is in Nashville. But on the other hand, this is certainly not the first time that we've had such an awful school shooting in the United States. And this may be the deadliest we've had in nearly a year, but it's actually the 19th school shooting at a school or university in this year so far that's left at least 1 person wounded. You may remember from last year, about a year ago, there was a horrible school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. That actually left 19 children and 2 adults dead. But there have been more than 500 school shootings actually since 2008. So really a high number of school shootings are happening, and more often in the United States in recent years. And it's really, reignited a gun law debate here in the US. At the moment in Tennessee, there is no red flag law. Now, red flag laws are essentially being debated a lot by politicians in the US at the moment to try and stop someone that might have a mental health disorder, or there be some other reason why they shouldn't have a gun, to be able to purchase a gun. But we do know that there's no such law in Tennessee at the moment. And clearly Hale was able to buy 7 guns, even though they were hiding some of them, and used 3 of them in this horrific attack.
We also know that while Tennessee has recently relaxed their gun laws, as you described there, the lack of a red flag law, so in other words, no permits or background checks are required for an individual to purchase guns. The Republican lawmakers are now looking to loosen the state's gun laws even further, contending that gun owners' rights need to be expanded. Can you tell us what that would mean in practical terms?
Well, it's happened in other places, Texas among them, after the Uvalde shooting, when right after this kind of horrific attack, there is interest and garnered attention on trying to change gun laws and trying to make it more difficult for people to get access to guns. But ultimately, there is a really strong pushback, sometimes from Republicans and certainly from the NRA, which controls the use of guns somewhat in the United States. So even when laws get proposed to state Congress and then debated, they're often pushed back, as they have been in Tennessee over the last year. There was a red flag law that was actually put to the Tennessee Congress that was pushed back. You've got to wonder now, as you suggest there, if that's going to end up on the Congress floor again and they'll debate it, given what has happened in this awful school shooting. But it does seem to be incredibly difficult to make any progress with gun laws, despite the fact that these shootings keep happening.
President Joe Biden has called for a ban on assault weapons from Congress. What's the reaction from Americans at large?
He certainly has. And, this was something that was again drawn up, particularly last year after the Uvalde shooting in Texas. Biden administration and a lot of Democrats, particularly that we've seen speak in Congress, do support, a ban on assault weapons in particular, because they're often used in these attacks and clearly can result in a far more deadly outcome than the use of other guns. We'll have to see really if this is something that can be moved forward, particularly with another school shooting that's resulted in the loss of so many innocent lives.
Thank you so much. That was US Correspondent Caroline Malone giving us some reaction to the shooting in Nashville, where 6 people lost their lives, 3 9-year-olds and 3 adults killed in that shooting.